Winning cures everything. Now for your hosts, Gary and Chris.
Welcome in, Winning Cures Everything. It is the Tuesday, July 19th edition of the show, and today we are discussing the Big Ten West. That's right, Iowa all the way through Northwestern. This was a crazy division last year. We're not going to dance around or anything like that. We're going to go ahead and dive into these teams because we're going to make it a little bit shorter. You know, I've been going kind of long on these, but I think that we can get in and get the information out and give you my prediction on the season for all of these different teams. So we will go ahead and start with that. Let's start off with the Iowa Hawkeyes. And, of course, Kirk Ferentz, a fantastic job last season. Hit the over for me, so that was certainly good. Last year, 10-4, and here we'll scroll that down just a bit. But one thing that is concerning here, obviously, the post-game win expectancy for them last season only added up to not quite 7 wins. So they played 13 games in the regular season, one of them being the Big Ten championship game, which was a complete and total disaster against Michigan. This team was interesting. So let's start off. Let's talk about the projected SP Plus record, which is 7-5 this year. But if you look, their win total 7.5. They are projected favorites in only 4 games this year. I mean, that is just abysmal. Not what you would expect from a team that's, number 30 in returning production and won 10 games last year. But again, that issue with the post-game win expectancy, 6.73 wins last year and 6.27 losses. Turnovers were a big portion of that. We're going to talk about that in keys to the season here in just a bit. So let's start off with the offense. It was atrocious last year. PPA per drive was number 125 on offense. Rushing success rate, number 106. Passing success rate, number 116. Offensive explosive play rate was number 105. I mean, it was you could not get worse than this offense last year, and yet they found a way to win 10 ball games. The offensive coordinator, Brian Ferentz, he's taken over quarterback coaching duties as well. But, I mean, my gosh, with an offense as bad as what he was last year, you would have to assume that giving him the quarterback coaching duties probably wouldn't be my first option, honestly. The quarterback, Spencer Petras and Alex Padilla, are back, but, I mean, my gosh, were they bad. Number 116 overall success rate. I mean, they were number 122 in passing PPA per play. Like, it's just, and PPA is predicted points added, by the way. You do have 4 starting offensive linemen back, but you are missing the center, Linderbaum. Running back Gavin Williams takes over. Plenty of wide receiver experience here, but you got to have somebody that's going to get them the ball. I don't know what to think about how bad this offense was last year, and it doesn't look like there were a ton of changes. So can you be as successful as you were last year? The roster strength on offense is number 93 in the country. They are number 75 overall. Defense is number 40. So at least they've got, one side of the ball is a strength. But, man, offense was awful last year as far as the defense goes. Defensive coordinator Phil Parker, national treasure. He is an absolute legend. He is going to field a good unit every year regardless. The linebacking core is deep. Cornerbacks are elite. Defensive line and safety are going to be fine. There are certain key players back, including the defensive backs, Moss and Merriweather. Linebacker Campbell is back along with 3 defensive linemen, but they do lose defensive end Valkenburg, cornerback Hankins, safety Kerner, and Belton. All those guys are gone. Defense was number 4 in takeaways per game last year. They were number 11 in rushing PPA, number 16 in passing PPA. Can you maintain that elite level that they did last year without some of those star players? I would imagine that they are going to be just fine on that side of the ball, if only because I trust the defensive coordinator a whole lot. That's what this team is founded on. I mean, that's what they are built on. That's their identity, is a tough, swarming, aggressive defense. They will continue to be so this year. Keys to the season here. Again, the win total is 7.5. They are plus 450 to win the division. This does not look like a team that could win the division again. And yet, they won it last year with a lot of the same bunch. So they were plus 19 in turnovers in 10 wins last year, and in the 4 losses, they were -7. So when they didn't turn the ball over and they were actually able to generate turnovers, yeah, they were able to win games. When they didn't and they turned the football over, they had 4 losses and they were kind of lopsided. So the offense, number 45 in scoring opportunities, but number 121 in points per scoring opportunity. They just could not get into the end zone. I mean, the fact that they were number 45 in drives inside the opponent's 40-yard line, and yet number 121 in points per drive, that is insane. Absolutely insane. Number 7 in turnover margin is going to have to be maintained again unless there's some kind of change on offense. Again, I brought it up earlier. Post-game win expectancy last year, that's a bit of a cause for concern. Is that luck? Is that coaching? Kind of makes you wonder. I've got this team going 7-5 this year. It would not surprise me to see them drop all the way down to like 6-6 because the schedule is pretty damn difficult. They've got Ohio State on this thing this year. It's rough. It is pretty rough. You do get Iowa State coming in, and everybody knows that Iowa just always beats Iowa State regardless of the circumstance. But yeah, I've got them at 7-5. I think they're going to be okay because I trust the foundation that Kirk Ferentz has built, but I don't imagine that they are going to be improved from last season. I will certainly say that. I don't think they're going to be any better than they were last year. It's going to take some big-time changes. They were number 5 in penalties per game, number 7 in turnover margin, so this team did not beat themselves. If they can continue to do that, yeah, I mean, I guess the sky is the limit, but, man, what they did last year, minor miracle. All right, we will move on to the Minnesota Golden Gophers and PJ Fleck's bunch last year. I would say overachieved, other than the fact that post-game win expectancy said that they were right where they should have been. They were 8-4 in the regular season. Post-game win expectancy said they should have been 9.11 and 2.89, so 9-3. A little surprising. They are number 44 in returning production, 67% coming back, most of that coming back on offense. The defense, only 60% coming back. That's number 79 in the country. Roster strength, they're okay. It's just that the offense is it's a little heavily tilted that direction. Defense, number 78 in roster strength, thanks to the guys over at CFB Winning Edge for that. This team did not run a lot of plays last year, and PJ Fleck flat out said in the spring that last year was a failure on him as a coach. And, I guess I can understand it. If he's got a different set of expectations, I guess I can understand that. The offense was not great. Number 77 in PPA per drive, number 79 rushing success rate, number 85 passing. They were number 114 in explosive play rate. Just not awesome. But they did a good job of not turning the football over, and they didn't beat themselves with penalties. So that's certainly good. The new OC, of course, we'll talk about the offense first. The new OC, Kurt Soraka, was at Penn State for 1 year. He was the leader of that huge 2019 season where, they had great wide receivers. Somehow Tanner Morgan was the quarterback and is still the quarterback. It just continues on. But Sanford Jr. Was fired as the offensive coordinator due to just a lack of a passing game. They were number 118 in passing yards per game, number 127 in attempts per game. And the only 3 schools that had less passing attempts per game than they did were the service academies. I mean, it's kind of insane when you look at it. The Encore 4 are all back for their 6th season, and that's Tanner Morgan, Mo Ibrahim, the center John Michael Schmitz, and the wide receiver Chris Autman-Bell. This team, they do lose some offensive line help, so that is certainly going to hurt. But the center, Schmitz, is back, so that's a key piece that you would like, especially when you've got a quarterback coming back. Michigan transfer left guard Chuck Falega. I'm not sure how to say it. Tell me in the comments. Tell me how you pronounce this name. He's in. The remaining offensive line talent should help the running backs be more successful than they were last year. I mean, it really, for as much as they ran, they were not really great at it. They weren't successful at it, and yet they found a way to win 9 ball games last year. As far as the defense, Joe Rossi, however you say it, had a disastrous 2020, but was top 10 in points per game and total yards per game in 2021. So that is definitely good. 6 of the top 8 defensive linemen as far as snap count are gone, And they also lost their leading tackler, which is the linebacker, Jack Gibbons. And, of course, they lost the cornerback, Coney Durr. Linebackers should be okay with Sori Marin and Oliver. Secondary has got talent. They got 2 safeties that played 650 snaps last year. 2 transfer cornerbacks that could be really good. You got Stapp from Abilene Christian and Bishop from Western Kentucky. This team is a projected favorite in 8 games this year. Their total is set at 7.5, and it's juiced a little bit to the under. I was a little surprised by that. They are plus 550 to win the division. The fact that Iowa actually has shorter odds than they do, that's a bit surprising to me. If you look at the keys to the season here, they were plus 6 turnovers and wins, minus 3 in their losses, so there wasn't like a huge discrepancy, but you could certainly tell when they didn't turn the ball over, and when they did, there was a big difference in winning ball games. Field position for this team last year was massive. Number 6 on offense, number 1 on defense. But I can't figure out how they got there, right? I don't think it was turnovers and all that. At kickoff returns, they were number 119 in the country on actual return yardage. Punt returns, number 60, and they were number 82 in takeaways. So I'm not sure exactly how the numbers got there, but they started in great field position on both defense and on offense. They allowed 26 touchdowns in 47 quality possessions last year. That's not great. Like the 47 quality possessions, that's pretty good. The 26 touchdowns is not. They ranked 105th, allowing 4.02 points per quality possessions. The defense, as good as they were, they need to figure out a way to get stops this year. They need the offensive line and defensive line to hold up. The biggest key to the season is the offense coordinator, Kirk Ciarrocca, and Tanner Morgan. Can they click again? Can they recreate that 2019 magic that they had? If they have wide receivers that can develop into studs like Bateman was, then you could have a monster season this year. PJ Fleck, for all the stuff that goes on outside, there are, of course, former players that want to talk about him and everything, that want to talk bad about him. He's been a pretty successful head coach. Like, he has figured out this division pretty quickly. They've beaten Wisconsin twice. Like, I'm a little shocked at that. I don't expect them to be able to go into Madison this year and get that win. But I've got this team at 8-4. Like, I think it's as goofy as that culture may be for those that are on the outside like myself. The people that are inside of it firmly believe in it, and I guess I can get with that. I understand what they are trying to build there, and it looks like it's working. Schedule looks a little bit tough at Michigan State, at Illinois, at Penn State, at Nebraska, at Wisconsin. It's kind of tough. I don't imagine that this is a team that that'll win the West this year, but crazier things have happened, certainly. So I've got them at 8-4. I've got them going over that 7.5. We'll see. It's tough with those road games, but the first 3 games set up brilliantly. Would it surprise me if they beat Michigan State? No. You got Purdue at home right after that. Then after your bye week, you got at Illinois, at Penn State. The schedule is okay. There's nobody on this schedule that's not beatable. So I guess anything could happen here, but I've got them going 8-4, getting projected favorites in 8 games. Let's jump ahead into the Wisconsin Badgers. Last year was a weird season. Started off the year 1-3, and Paul Christ's bunch ended up 9-4. And, you could tell a massive difference between the way that they started and the way that they ended. The new OC, let's do this. Returning production, not good. It's 55%. That's number 103 in the country. Defense takes the biggest hit of that, number 118, so Jim Leonard certainly has his work cut out for him. Offense is number 62. You got 65% coming back. This team last year was almost exactly what they were supposed to be. Their post-game win expectancy was 8.03 and 3.97. So 8-4 in the regular season, and the post-game win expectancy said it was as much. So the games that they lost, there was really no chance of them winning. In the games that they won, there was really no chance of the other team winning. It sets up pretty well statistically. As far as roster strength, the offense has the majority of the strength this go round, number 28. Now, would it surprise me if that swaps middle of the season or so, once the newer guys that are coming in understand Leonard's aggressive system. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Wouldn't surprise me at all. The offense, I mean, let's start with that. The new OC is Bobby Ingram. Comes over. He's got a lot of NFL experience. You remember how he was going to be the one to get Wisconsin Caleb Williams at quarterback? We were going to see a whole new Wisconsin system. Did not turn out to happen, but that's okay. That's okay. This is basically what Wisconsin is. They run the ball, and they are going to continue to do that. Running backs Allen and Malusi combined for 2,083 yards last year and 17 touchdowns. They're going to have another strong offensive line. They got 3 returning starters. That left side is super strong. The rest of the guys will be able to develop. Paul Chryst knows what he's doing with an offensive line. What can Bobby Ingram do with Graham Mertz? I mean, I think that's the biggest question. He lost 11 interceptions and 4 fumbles last year, but the worst part was they were number 115 in passing PPA. The offensive line was actually pretty good as far as pass pro. They were number 6 in havoc rate allowed. I mean, you look at these numbers, 101 in PPA per drive. Like the rushing success rate was number 40. Passing success rate was number 75. As far as their explosive play rate, number 129 out of 130 in the country. I mean, it just no explosive plays really. So, this was another one of those teams that didn't run a bunch of plays, tried to be as efficient as possible, limit the number of plays so that the other team doesn't get more opportunities. And that's the way it worked. They were number 126 in total plays per game. Moving over to the defense, I already mentioned number 118 in returning production. You look at Jim Leonard, like he's always lights out. But what do you do with only 45% returning production? It may take a little bit to get the defense to gel this year. You got 4 defensive back transfers coming in. There's only 7 players that have 158-plus snaps. You've only got 4 with 300-plus that were already in Leonard's system. So it may take a little bit of time for them to understand exactly what's going on here, but the schedule sets up brilliantly before Ohio State comes in week 4. I mean, you got Illinois State, Washington State, and New Mexico State. Like, you should be able to hammer those teams and get that defense really gelled by the time the Buckeyes come in, or before you go to the Buckeyes. I guess, like, the secondary has got to figure out the attacking scheme. Defensive line along linebacker should be pretty strong this year. We'll see exactly what happens here. As far as the schedule goes, I mean, they are projected favorites in 10 games. Their win total sits at 8.5. It's juiced to the over at minus 135. They are plus 165 to win the division. And that does make sense. That does make sense to me. During the first 4 games last year, Graham Mertz, just awful. Number 117 in total QBR. In the final 8 games, they were number 29, or he was number 29. The biggest issue that they're going to have this year as far as that offense goes, only 4 players caught more than 8 passes, and 3 of them are gone. So you got a whole new slew of receivers this year, both at tight end, etc. I'm curious what this is going to look like, because hiring Ingram, it appears that you want to somewhat modernize this offense, and that may take a little bit of time. Now, again, schedule sets up really well early on with some pretty easy wins, and that includes Washington State. I know that's going to be a styles make fights kind of a game, but regardless, the turnovers last year, they were plus 10 in their wins and minus 9 in the losses. And do not go back and watch that Notre Dame film. In 4 losses last year and these were top 50 yards per rush defenses, they averaged 2.59 yards per rush on 140 rushing attempts. In their 9 wins, they averaged 5.57 yards per rush on 427 runs. They eventually just went away from Graham Mertz throwing the ball. Like, it was a fairly predictable offense, but they ran up against teams that could not stop them no matter what. Will they be able to do that again this year? Because you do have 5 teams that are on the schedule that had top 50 yards per rush defenses. We'll see. We'll see. I've got this bunch going 9-3. It seems like Paul Chryst always goes 9-3, regardless of what else is happening. This is a strong football team. I kind of expect them to do the exact same thing that they've been doing. Go 9-3. I don't know that I expect Graham Mertz to improve a ton. And even if he does, I don't know who he's going to throw the ball to. I think Wisconsin could probably end up winning this division. But again, do they have a real shot at winning the Big Ten title? Probably not. But I'm curious to see what Bobby Ingram does. I want to see what this team develops as through the first 3 weeks. Again, number 103 in returning production, but you've got 3 weeks to really be able to figure this thing out before you play against Ohio State. Other than that, the schedule is feasible. They can make it work. So I'm curious. Let's go ahead and hit some ads, and then we will hit Purdue on the backside. Let's take a break from the show for just a minute to give you some info on things you should know about. Visit winningcureseverything.com to find everything you need to know about us, including full shows in video or podcast form, our gambling picks, our store, the gear we use, and more. Subscribe to us on YouTube to get not only the full shows, but individual segments, along with other goodies as well. We're over 5,600 subscribers right now, and our goal by the end of football season is 7,500. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever's your favorite podcast app. And if your app allows it, leave a 5-star written review. Visit the Winning Cures Everything web store to get all kinds of football shirts, hats, hoodies, coffee mugs, and more. You can visit winningcureseverything.com/store and see what all we've added. And now, back to the show. All right, the Purdue Boilermakers and a monster 2021 season last year for Jeff Brom and that bunch. We'll start off with this. Post-game win expectancy, a little scary. 6.02 and 5.98 for a team that went 8-4 in the regular season. That is a cause for concern. As far as returning production goes, number 61 in the country, 63% coming back. Offense and defense, both relatively strong. Offense obviously stronger than the defense this year. But, the numbers were awesome last year. This was really good, a good rebound year for Jeff Brom and that bunch. Let's look at projected SP Plus record, 7-5. It's what Bill Connelly's got them going. As far as roster strength, like I said, the guys over at CFB Winning Edge have got them at number 66 in the country. You lose David Bell, you lose George Karlaftis, you lose Xander Horvath, you lose Milton Wright. It's just, some big-name guys, and yet there are quite a few guys actually coming back. So there are studs at certain positions, and it looked like they got that energy back towards the end of last season. I'll certainly say that. On offense, we'll start off with that. Brian Brom's unit. The offense averaged 33 points per game when David Bell got 70-plus receiving yards and 22 points per game when he did not. So he was the linchpin for the offense. Now, obviously, you watched them in the bowl game against Tennessee, and you had Brock Thompson catching for 200-plus yards, whatever. You had the tight end, Durham, actually catching, a couple of touchdown passes. It looked like O'Connell was going to be fine. The offensive PPA per drive last year was number 49. They were number 18 in passing success rate, number 67 in rushing success rate. Not as explosive as you would imagine them being, number 120 in explosive play rate, but a lot of that might have been how many plays they actually ran. Remember, that's just play rate, nothing more than that. Let's look at Aiden O'Connell. He lost the wide receivers Bell and Wright. Wright, of course, academics, another casualty there. Tight end Durham, wide receiver Thompson return. Brom can develop skill players. We already know that. I would expect a lot of these guys that he's got in there to be pretty successful this year. The offensive line does have experience. They got 3 starters back, another with 450-plus snaps. You got 2 good transfers coming in. Can they get anything out of the run game? Now, I understand that that's not exactly what Brom specializes in, but they were number 128 in rushing PPA per play. You got to do at least a little bit better than that so that you can, maybe get other teams off your trail, get them away from the quarterback a little bit. Just try and confuse them some. Be a little unpredictable. I'll say that. Moving over to defense, they lost the defense coordinator, Brad Lambert. That's going to hurt. He headed over to Wake Forest. So the co-DCs this year are Ron English and Mark Hagan. What is this defense without George Karlaftis? The defensive end last year, you can talk to coaches. They will tell you other teams schemed and shifted and did all kind of things on their line to specifically stop him. And yet that defense was still really, really good. If you don't have a guy like that, what can this defense be? I'm really curious. They were number 62 in havoc rate, number 41 in PPA per drive, number 69 in scoring opportunities, but also number 35 in points per scoring opportunity. A scoring opportunity, by the way, is a drive inside the opponent's 40-yard line. So, the fact that Purdue allowed that many drives inside their 40-yard line and were able to still get stops, that's pretty awesome. Defensive line does have 4 guys that return with 350-plus snaps. The linebackers, Graham and Douglas, should be pretty good. The secondary, well, okay, you've got the cornerback, Brown. You got the safety, Allen. You got Indiana transfer cornerback, Taylor, coming in. We'll see what happens here. We'll see what happens with this defense. They are projected favorites in 5 ball games out of 12. No, that's not good. However, their win total is 7.5. It's juiced to the under at minus 125, but this team is plus 550 to win the division. And maybe they're doing something that, let me look for the right word here. Maybe they're doing something so completely different from the rest of the division that it catches everybody off guard. Now, obviously, Brom's been in this division for a while, so everybody knows kind of what to expect. But if they are so much better at throwing the football than everybody else and they can outscore teams, then maybe we got something here. As far as keys to the season, this is another team just like the other ones, plus 7 turnover margin in wins, minus 9 in their losses. They were number 78 in turnover margin last year. That's not going to allow you to compete for the division. It just won't. This team's post-game win expectancy last year certainly cause for concern. I mentioned that earlier. They were 8-4 in the regular season. Post-game win expectancy, as far as what the stats say they should have been, was closer to 6-6. Now, was that luck that allowed them to win 2 extra games, or was it coaching? If it's coaching, maybe you can expect to replicate the results. If it's just luck, we'll see. Defense was number 45 in rushing success rate allowed, number 45 in defensive line yards. Can you keep it up? Because if you can't stop the run in this division, you are probably toast. That offensive energy, as I mentioned early on, it appeared to be back last year, especially towards the end of the season. How much of their success last year was offense versus having a pretty good defense? If you've got a great offense and a pretty good defense, you can win a lot of ball games. If you've got a great offense and a crap defense, you're probably going to lose a lot of ball games. I want to see what they look like this year heading into the next season, or heading into the middle of the year, the conference season. I really like the team. I've got them going 7-5. That first game against Penn State, massive swing game. Just a massive swing game. I expect them to go on the road and beat Syracuse. I think they're going to beat Florida Atlantic at home. The road schedule is not all that daunting. You got a lot of good games at home this year. Your road schedule at Minnesota, at Maryland, at Wisconsin, at Illinois, at Indiana. You should reasonably expect to be able to win 1, 2, 3. At least 3 of those road games. And then you got your other ones at home. You got Iowa at home. You got Northwestern at home. You got Nebraska at home. I think you got a good chance of being pretty good this year, but I want to see what the defense looks like. I've got to see what it looks like without Lambert and without Karlaftis. So I've got them at 7-5 this year. It's going under the win total, but would it surprise me to see them go 8-4, 9-3? Show up in Indianapolis? No, not in the slightest. Jeff Brown, all of these teams are pretty well coached. All of them have a very strong identity. I like Purdue. I think they're going to be all right. So 7-5 for me on Purdue. Nebraska, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. No, let's swap that around. I want to do something different here. We'll save Nebraska for the backside. The Illinois Fighting Illini. Now, Brett Bielema, year 1, I don't know that you can call it anything but a success in year 1. They went 5-7, and no, they didn't make a bowl game. They probably should have, though. Illinois surprised me a lot last year. Their projected SP Plus record this year is 4-8. And, of course, when you look at the numbers, it does make sense. They were number 94 in PPA margin, number 81 in net points per drive. But this is a team that, didn't beat themselves. Number 32 in turnover margin, number 26 in penalties per game. Their biggest issue this year, you got a lot of momentum last year, and now you have only 57% returning production. That's number 94 in the country. So that is not good. As far as defense goes, number 95 in returning production. Offense is only number 83. But you did begin to establish a culture. And that's certainly a good thing as far as Illinois is concerned. Let's start off with the offense here. Number 102 in PPA per drive is really bad. I mean, just a really, really bad. Rushing success rate, number 62. The passing success rate. There's a reason why they brought in Tommy DeVito for 1 year, right? He's the quarterback from Syracuse. I would imagine he starts over Sitkowski. But they also swapped out their offensive coordinator. Passing success rate was number 124. Not going to get it done, especially if you cannot run as well as these other teams in the division. I'll say that. The new OC, Barry Lunny Jr., he was the OC at UTSA. He was Bielema's tight ends coach at Arkansas. Helped establish guys like Hunter Henry, etc. Transfer quarterback Tommy DeVito, you got to hope that he hits. You got to hope he hits. The running back Chase Brown is back. He had over 1,000 yards rushing last year, 5.9 yards per carry. Tight end Ford is back looking for a strong senior season, which should really work with Barry Lunny Jr. as the offensive coordinator because he understands, of course, how to work with tight ends. Along with that, the wide receiver Isaiah Williams is back. So that's good, definitely a good thing. You got some playmakers there. You got some studs. You got leaders in the locker room. I think that's the biggest thing here. Offensive line's got a couple of studs on the right side. The rest is going to be rebuilt. But if there's one thing that I trust Brett Bielema with, it would be an offensive line. They were number 21 in line yards last year, number 15 in stuff rate allowed. So really the run game should have been better than number 72 PPA per play last year as far as rushing PPA. I'm curious what it'll look like this year with that rebuilt offensive line. You're starting off relatively easy. I mean, not easy, obviously. You got Wyoming, at Indiana, Virginia, and Chattanooga in the first 4 games. It could be tricky, but, those are all beatable teams this season. Let's talk about the defense. Defensive coordinator Ryan Walters did good things in year 1. That team was really good at tackling. Number 28 in points per scoring opportunity. They actually got stops, so that was promising. Number 59 in PPA per play. That was an improvement over the previous coaching staff for sure. They allowed only 18 points per game over the final 9 games of the season. The tackling, again, was fantastic. But big issue here is the linebacking core replacing 5 out of 6. There's not a lot of depth behind their studs at defensive line and at defensive back. Only 2 D-line transfers, so they're relying on recruits and guys that have already been in the system. How good can Walters develop the inexperienced, unheralded guys, right? I like his schemes, but how quickly can he develop those guys that don't have a ton of experience? That's going to be an issue. They are projected favorites in 7 games this year, at least according to the guys over at CFB Winning Edge. Their win total is 4.5. Now, it's juiced to the over at minus 130, and a big part of that is the fact that, again, only 57% returning production. If you look at the keys to the season here, first off, they probably should have made a bowl game last year. Their post-game win expectancy was 6.12, and they only went 5-7 in the regular season. So they were right there in a ton of ball games. They were number 32 in turnover margin, 26 in penalties per game. That means they didn't beat themselves. You got to keep that going. Already brought that up before. Team was definitely starting to gel at the end of the season. But again, it was really weird because you went 3-2 down the stretch. You beat Northwestern. Should have done that. You won at Minnesota. That was surprising. You won at Penn State in 9 overtimes. Again, surprising. But you lost at home to Rutgers. Losing to Iowa on the road is nothing to sniff at. I understand that. But regardless, how do you go beat Penn State and go on the road and beat Minnesota and lose at home to Rutgers, right? It's just inconsistency. Just the biggest thing. The biggest question here, how much does 57% returning production hurt after a step in the right direction in year 1? I mean, I will begin to see that, I would imagine. The big issue here is, did you have enough time in year 1 to establish the culture so that everybody understands what their role is? I think so. I've let it be known on this show multiple times. I like Brett Bielema. I expect him to do good things here. I think he's going to be a good coach for Illinois. I think this is a step forward this year. I think they go 6-6. Like, I think they win their first 4 games, and then it's tough sledding the rest of the way because that is a tough, brutal schedule, especially after you get that Chattanooga game in week 4. You got at Wisconsin, Iowa, and Minnesota. Then you get another bye week. You play at Nebraska, Michigan State, Purdue, at Michigan, at Northwestern. Just a brutal schedule. But I think that they can get those first 4 games. I think they win those first 4, and then you find 2 more somewhere else. Like, I've got wins over Purdue and Northwestern, but it wouldn't surprise me if they end up beating Michigan State or Minnesota again, or if they beat Iowa this year, etc. I think Illinois can make a bowl game. The over-under is 4.5. It's juiced to the over at -130. I like them to go 6-6, especially if you're a favorite in 7 games. Yeah, that's the way I'm rolling with it. All right, we'll come back after this. We're going to knock out Nebraska and Northwestern. Let's take a break from the show for just a minute to give you some info on things you should know about. Follow the show on Twitter at Winning Cures, or you can follow the guys at Gary WCE and at Chris B. Giannini, or you can also follow us on Facebook. If you want more content from me, Gary, visit BetUSTV.com. I host the How to Gamble on Sports show, and from August through January, the BetUS College Football show. You can subscribe to both on YouTube. Got your own podcast or web show? Looking to start one? Or you're just curious how we look and sound so good? Well, we've got all the gear that we use listed on our gear page on the website. And if you order using our links, you'll be supporting the show too. If you're interested in advertising on a show that reaches over 80,000 unique football fans per month during the season, send an email to Gary@winningcureseverything.com, and we'll put together a plan that best fits you or your business. And now, back to the show. All right, we're moving into the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Scott Frost, not a good year last year. Now he has come back on a shorter contract, a contract that pays him less money. So that definitely doesn't make you feel good about the prospects for this season. However, when you look at this team and what they were last year, only 3 wins, and yet their post-game win expectancy was 7.5 wins. Like, this team should have been a lot better than they were record-wise. You look at this number that they've got here, number 100 in returning production, and with some teams, that really scared me. And with them, it doesn't really, because you've got a lot of transfers coming in. Just a ton of guys. You've got a new offensive coordinator. The defense was pretty good last year. It was, it was okay. I expect some new things this year. I will say that. Let's look at the projected SP Plus record, 8-4. Okay, let's see. Let's talk about the offense first. Number 35 in PPA per drive. They were number 75 in rushing success rate, number 26 in passing success rate, and number 36 in offensive explosive rate. The numbers here would lead you to believe that this was a much better team than just 3 wins. It still blows my mind watching this team last year. The new OC is Mark Whipple. Of course, came over from Pitt. He replaces Matt Lubick. Again, the offense was okay. It was just bad decisions in some key spots that really got them beat in some of these games. They swapped out the quarterback Martinez for Texas's Casey Thompson. Along with that, you brought in 3 wide receiver transfers. You now got 5 wide receivers that had 342-plus snaps last year. The offensive line appears to be pretty strong. They were number 31 in havoc rate allowed last year, so pretty good offensive line. Passing offense was number 26 in explosiveness last year, but they only had 57 plays of 20-plus yards. That's number 86 in the country. Hey, if you were that good at it, why did you not do it more often? That's my question. Can Whipple's play calling, help them do more of what they're good at this year? That's what I'm curious about. So Mark Whipple, it took him a little while to get things going at Pitt, but once he did, man, they just took off. I'm curious how his offensive philosophy can work successfully with the defense for Eric Chinander. I hope I said that right. If I didn't, you can roast me in the comments. It's okay. Talking about the defense, number 64 PPA per drive, number 80 rushing success rate allowed, number 88 passing success rate allowed, but they were number 8 in explosive play rate allowed. So, what are you going to do? I'm a little surprised that this defense was what's the word I'm looking for? The numbers didn't look good, but when you watched them, I felt like they were a lot better than the numbers showed. The defense does replace a lot on the defensive line and in the secondary. Linebackers have a ton of experience coming back. Defensive line transfers, Mathis from TCU. You got Wynn coming in from Alabama, Drew from Texas Tech. Like, you got legit guys playing defensive line. I think they're going to be pretty good at that position. Along with that, I've got 6 defensive transfers coming in that should be, they should play early and they should play often, I would imagine. You got, including transfers, there are 9 guys with 455-plus snaps, so they should be plenty experienced this year. They are projected favorites in 10 games this year. Now, their win total is 7.5, and it's juiced the same, minus 115 to the over, minus 115 to the under. Let's talk about this. They're plus 275 to actually win the division, which is kind of insane considering they only won 3 ball games last year. But sometimes wins and losses are not everything, right? Especially when you're going into another season, you're trying to look and see exactly where they got better, et cetera. Their field position, which is directly related to special teams, was awful last year. Number 91 in offensive field position, number 97 in defensive field position. Over Frost's tenure, Nebraska should have won about 23 games based on the final stats, right? Post-game win expectancy. They've only won 15. Like, that's not luck at a certain point. It's coaching. Can Frost get out of whatever funk he's in and make the right decisions? Special teams were a complete disaster. They've moved Bill Bush to a full-time special teams coordinator because they did not have one. Frost says he's going to start using more starters on special teams. Okay. It's one of those where you really need to show me. But I'm kind of bought in on him this year. Like, I like Casey Thompson. I like what he did with the offense in Texas. I think that Frost being willing to take a pay cut, being willing to change over some of his staff, et cetera, he wants this thing to work. And I think they will this year. I've got them at 8-4. Would 7-5 surprise me? No. Would 6-6 surprise me? I mean, nothing with this team would really surprise me at this point. They're projected favorites in 10 games, but they got 6 games that are toss-ups. Toss-ups for me are games that are projected to be within 1 score, so 8 points or less. The schedule looks reasonable. They get Oklahoma at home in week 4. I think that there's a chance that they could do really good things this year. So I've got them 8-4. I could see them doing anything from 5 wins to 10 wins. Nothing at this point would surprise me with this bunch. What would surprise me, I think, is them winning the division. Like, plus 275. I think the second favorite odds behind Wisconsin. Whew, okay, you got to show me on that one. All right, we're going to move on, and this is the last one for the day. And, of course, we've gone well over the 40-minute mark for 7 teams because I like to talk a lot. But that's what I do. That's what we're here for. We're here to discuss previews. So we will move into the Northwestern Wildcats and Pat Fitzgerald. Pat. 3-9 last year. Post-game win expectancy said 3.43 and 8.57, so round about right. Returning production. Normally, after a bad year, Northwestern is gearing up for the next year, right? We've seen this multiple times in Pat Fitzgerald's tenure, where you've got a bunch of seniors that graduate, et cetera, and then it takes a couple of years to get the other guys developed into being pretty good. I don't know that I see it this year. Those numbers last year were really, really bad. And while I want them to be better, because obviously I have a little bit of a Northwestern bias since our buddies in the Westlot Pirates all went to Northwestern, and they support. I've been to Ryan Field. I like Northwestern, but I don't really like the team this year. So let's start off with the offense. 68% returning production on offense. The OC, Mike Bajakian, he is longing for the glory days of Peyton Ramsey as the quarterback, of course, from the 2020 season. But even those numbers were not great for Peyton Ramsey in that bunch. The quarterback situation has been dreadful. So, Helinski can only improve the situation, I would hope. Running back Cam Porter back from injury. He missed all of last year. But that did lead for Evan Hull to run for 1,000-plus yards this year. So you got two studs at running back this year, so long as Cam Porter comes back healthy from the injury and everything. You're going to need improvement from the wide receivers. Kurtz, Washington should be healthy now. The offensive line looks strong. They got to be better than number 100 in stuff rate. I mean, the running backs could not even get past the line before they had somebody hitting them. And luckily, Hull and that bunch were able to at least do something. Yeah, you look at the offensive numbers, number 112 in PPA per drive, number 118 in passing success rate, number 97 in offensive explosive play rate, but rushing success was number 80. And no, it's not a huge jump up, but they were at least able to do something. On defense, Jim O'Neill didn't exactly make people forget about Mike Hankwitz in year one at all. From the first game, the first play of the first game, they were just getting shredded over and over and over again. Linebacker and defensive line look kind of weak. The secondary, even with the loss of Brandon Joseph, looks to be the strong unit on that side. 4 defensive transfers should be able to play a lot this year. Only 58% returning production. Is that actually a good thing when some of the career backups that were thrust into starting roles last year did not perform well, right? So we'll see. If you just return production and it wasn't good, does that mean that they're guaranteed to improve? No. So maybe the other side is, well, we just get rid of all those guys, bring in the new ones, see how we fare with that. Can't be any worse, right? I mean, especially based on what they were last year. Number 107 in PPA per drive, number 108 in rushing success rate allowed, number 101 in passing success rate allowed. Just brutal. They are projected favorites in 3 games. Their win total sits at 4, and it's juiced to the under at -125. Everything was bad last year. Let's talk about the keys to the season. Field position was brutal. Turnover margin was number 102. I will tell you this. There is something about Pat Fitzgerald teams where they do not beat themselves as far as penalties go. They were pretty disciplined there, number 14 in the country. Fitzgerald does this dance, right? Good season, bad season. 2018, he was 9-5. 2020, 7-2. But in 2019, 3-9. 2021, 3-9. The issue is going into those good seasons, you could at least see talent and experience and what they were building towards. Right now, I have no idea. Absolutely no clue. The offense was number 130 in goal-to-go touchdown rate last year. They were number 122 in points per scoring opportunity. You got to be able to finish drives this year. The numbers were just abysmal. And while there are a few pieces here that could bring a little bit of hope, a bowl appearance for me this year would be an absolute shock for this team. I've got them going 3-9. Would it surprise me if they get to 4 wins, maybe 5? No. If they get to 6 wins, I would be shocked. I would absolutely be shocked. So I wish for the best for Northwestern, but that is a tough road to hoe. And I don't know if I trust Jim O'Neill. I don't know if I trust Bajakian. I should trust Pat Fitzgerald at this point, and yet I don't right now. Maybe I should. You Northwestern fans, let me know in the comments. I would love to hear what the hope is for this season. What can we reasonably expect for the Wildcats? All right, with that said, we are nearly up to 50 minutes, so we're going to get out of here. Not sure if I will hit the East on Wednesday or if I'm going to hit the East on Friday, but I will try and get the Big Ten East done this week. All right, with that said, you guys have been absolutely fantastic. Subscribe to the show if you've not already. Go ahead and share it out. Tell your friends about it. If you are on Apple Podcasts, go ahead and do us a favor and subscribe for one, and leave a nice written 5-star review. That's going to help me out a ton. YouTube, we finally hit 6,000 subscribers. That is a step in the right direction. We're hoping to get to 7,500 by the end of football season. So help us out with that. That would certainly be a big-time help. With everything that is going on, I hope that you guys all have a wonderful rest of the week. We will be back with multiple shows, but I just hope good things for you. So with that said, you all take care of yourself, take care of each other, and hopefully all of your tickets cash this week. Thanks for listening to the Winning Cures Everything podcast. The website is winningcureseverything.com, and if you want to connect with us, we're on Twitter at GaryWCE, at Chris B. Giannini, at Winning Cures, or you can email us, Gary at winningcureseverything.com or Chris at winningcureseverything.com. Subscribe everywhere you need to subscribe, and we'll see you soon.